to finally get on and open the debate on this matter and invite the Labor Party to now engage in a debate on the issues, which are very important issues. And this clause is very much.
Order. The member is on his feet speaking. Interjections should be rare and reasonable, and I'll ask members to tone it down. I want to hear what the member is saying. Alan Peachy.
This clause goes very much to the heart of the bill and to the mechanics of it. And what the basic issue is this. Should membership of student associations in New Zealand in 2011 be compulsory? It is that simple, it is that black, and it is that white. And one of the questions that the House needs to consider is whether university and polytechs tertiary students should be subjected to a constraint on their freedom of association as a result of legislation of this Parliament or not. Because when that happens, an individual's right of freedom of association is being marginalised. And I have to say...
Point of order, the Honourable Tauhanari.
Mr. Speaker, Chairman, I realise this is a robust debate, but the constant barrage should be toned down.
I'll deliberate on that matter, and I'll call to Alan Peachy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was making the point that whether it's appropriate in 2011 that tertiary students should be subjected, as a result of legislation of this Parliament, to have their right of association constrained. And what this bill does, or what this clause does, is makes it very, very clear that membership of student associations should be voluntary, and it should be at the will of the student, not at the will of an organisation like a student association. And I cannot, Mr. Chairman, for the life of me, understand the fundamental Labor Party position. After all, was it not a member of the Labor Party, I think a minister at the time, who advanced the very same arguments that are being advanced on this side of the House in support of Clause 6, that membership of the Real Estate Institute should be voluntary. And if members on the other side of the House are going to get up and argue that university, tertiary students should be compelled to belong to an association, then it is incumbent upon them to explain to this House why a university student should be made by law to belong to an association. In other words, have a constraint imposed upon their democratic right of freedom of association when a real estate agent, and for that matter, a unionist, is not subjected to the same constraint. It is a very simple matter. And what this clause does is actually confer to tertiary students the same rights that every other New Zealander has in terms of their right to voluntary association. And why, Mr. Chair, would anybody come into this House in 2011 and argue that that constraint against the right of freedom of association of a tertiary student should be maintained? And what this clause does is makes it very, very clear that membership of student unions should be voluntary. I commend the clause to the House, and I urge the House to move this business dispatched. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
During Mr. Peake